Hi everyone! I'm going to show you a recipe of mine today that I'm actually doing to put in my ebook, but I'm demoing it quickly on video so that you can start making it now. And then if you want a very structured recipe, you can get my ebook at a later point. But I really wanted to show it to you now because it's so practical. It's easy to make. It's vegetarian, but it's very nourishing. And it's very, very adaptable. So you don't, as long as you have a few basic ingredients, you can just do whatever you want with it. And that is a red lentil curry. So so I'll show you that, okay? And then if I have time, I'll show off a few of the other things I made with other ingredients. Okay, so what you're gonna need for this recipe is these red lentils, okay? These red lentils, they're like this orange coral color. What I love about them is that they are really easy to cook. So I do soak them for an hour or so before I make them, but a lot of people don't soak them. It's always better to soak your beans, always, just because it makes them easier to digest. And there's loads of reasons why it does that, but soaking is always good. So I like to soak them, even if I don't have time, I soak them half an hour. Just always soak a little bit throughout the water. And so I've got 1.5 cups of this. I also have half an onion. Now this is very much, I took what's in my fridge and I'm making do with what I've got, okay? So I've got half an onion. You could put a whole onion, you may know, I don't often use a lot of onion because I don't digest it super well, but if it's cooked for a long time, it's okay. So I have half an onion here that is roughly chopped. I've got some ginger, all right, so I don't know, you see 2 little knobs like this. So what I'm gonna do is, and you could also add garlic to it if you wanted to. I won't, but you could, and most people like to add garlic. The other thing I love to add, this, is asafoetida. It's a yellowy kind of powder that resembles, the taste, it has a sulfuric taste, a bit like onion and garlic, so you could add that. I don't have any left, so I'm not going to, but I'm going to put this in my blender, in my little mixer, and I'm just going to chop it up. The other thing I'm going to add, and this is a bit spontaneous, I've got this leftover fennel, okay? So I often buy fennel and cut it up for the kids to snack on before dinner. Fennel is really good because it helps digestion. It's really good to have with a meal because it just helps everything go down, It's healthy, and I often have leftovers. And so I've got a little bit, but if you don't have any, it's okay. You don't have to put it in there. If you've got half a carrot, you can put half a carrot. If you got any leftover kind of crunchy veg that you want to put in there, go ahead. So I'll put this in here. So the reason I've put, wait, let me just get this all going, okay? So I'm heating up the big wok. And I am going to get some ghee. All right, you could use coconut oil. Ghee is this clarified butter, okay? It's butter that has been melted, and the white part, when it gets melted, it separates, and you've got the yellow part of the butter, and then you've got the white part, and that's where I think you have a lot of the milk proteins that a lot of people don't digest well. Like casein, I don't know how you pronounce it in English, casein, C-A-S-E-I-N. So for that reason, ghee is actually quite good for the stomach. In Ayurveda, they use it a lot, it's quite soothing. But it has a strong taste, so I wouldn't use it as butter on toast, you know what I mean? It definitely works well in cooking. So I'm putting a big tablespoon of that. To that, I'm going to put this little mixture, not on high heat, because I wanted to, gently cook. So I'll just put it in now. Okay. And because it will be on kind of gentle heat, it will give me time to take my spices and, here you go. This is my little mortar and pestle. So this mortar and pestle, I love it because it's made of stone. Although it looks like marble and it looks like really fancy, but it was like $5 in a Dubai souk or something. But you can easily get these. It's just made out of stone, and stone, it's easier to mash hard spices with this rather than a wooden one. Like in France, they use these wooden ones that are also very beautiful, but they're not as good to ground spices. And also they stain, and it's usually made of olive wood and stuff. So I don't really want to stain this one. This is just a decoration. It's good quality, but it's a decoration for me. Okay, so I use this to smash my spices. Okay, so the spices I'm gonna use, I want this dish to be like a healing, cleansing dish. And often these red lentils are going to be used in things like dhal or things like khichdi that are like quite soothing for the system, quite cleansing for the system. And because lentils are a bit difficult to digest for some people, it's good to put lots of spices with them, like to cook them with all spices that help digestion, okay? In general, and are just healing spices. So I'm going to use some cardamom. So I'm going to show you something. Now, you may know cardamom as a powder. If you do, stop buying it and just buy the seeds. They're so much more fragrant. So you've got green cardamom, okay, which this one is getting a little bit old because you see it's not as green as it used to be. So I suggest cardamom is one of those things you shouldn't buy in huge quantities unless you're always like making Indian food or something. So this cardamom is something that you use, you know, in sweets. You can use it in curries. But also another type of cardamom is black cardamom. Black cardamom has a slightly different taste. I find it has like almost a eucalyptus-y smell to it. It has a different smell. So don't quote me on this eucalyptus-y thing, but you'll see that the seeds are different. Like they're bigger. Like see, it almost looks like a cacao bean or something. You see the seeds inside? Whereas the seeds of the green, these are the seeds of the green one, like black versus green, which are teeny tiny, you see? And the black one is often used in savory dishes. Like you wouldn't use black cardamom really in a pudding or in a cake or whatever. You use it in savory dishes. So I'm gonna mash that up. I've got some fennel seeds. Like fennel is super good for digestion. So I'll put a few. I don't want to put like a ton either, but just a few. I've got ginger already that's quite good for like cleansing and digestion and all of that. Cumin. So unfortunately I don't have cumin seeds, or otherwise I would put cumin seeds, but I've got the powder, and the powder is still quite fragrant in my opinion. So I will put the powder, but I'll put it maybe at the end. I won't mix it to this just yet. You might want to put a bit of cinnamon. So you could use a cinnamon stick. Actually, maybe I would use it, but then I would have to climb on that counter and go up there where my cinnamon sticks are. So I won't. But you could just put like a cinnamon stick or half of a cinnamon stick. But beware of cinnamon sticks. So I know that in North America, you often find these like small, thin cinnamon sticks, like the ones, it's the most commonly found ones in North America. But if you go to like India or Sri Lanka or, the rest of the world, I feel like saying, often the cinnamon sticks, because cinnamon is a tree, right? And it's the bark of the tree that is the stick. And often when you go to India, it's not like these tight, small, strong cinnamon sticks. It's like these bigger, they really look like barks. And those are ideally the ones you want to put in your curry and use, because they're better quality and they're just better for you, generally speaking. Google it, okay? Google it, and you'll see there's like 2 types of cinnamon. So what I did is I have those cinnamon sticks and I ground them up. So I have it in powder as well, because I use it in baking a lot. So I'll just put a little bit in there. I don't want to put too much because it's quite strong, but you know, still. So there you go. So I've got now my quantities. I took like, just say like, if you've got green cardamom, you take a few of these, like 3, 4, 2, 3. If you've got a black one, you just take 1, it's enough. Teaspoon of cumin that I'll put later. A quarter teaspoon, like a pinch of cinnamon, teaspoon of fennel, and I've got that ginger in there. Okay, so now this is heating up. I'm gonna put these in here. I'm gonna increase the heat a little bit, and I'm also going to put some turmeric, okay? And the turmeric is, where's my spoon? Okay. I put quite a bit of turmeric, because that's super healing and anti-inflammatory, right? It's like really good. You also have fresh turmeric. Look, this is a fresh turmeric root. I don't often use fresh turmeric because it's super potent for your system, and sometimes it can cause too much fire. So, you know, sometimes I'll use it in when I really need like a kind of punch in my smoothie, but I don't often buy it. I mostly use the powder. Now, these are frying up. Okay, now I feel like these are, like this is getting a bit dry. So, that's good. Just keep stirring, which is fine. I'm gonna add that cumin now. I'm gonna add like about a teaspoon. Now these are the basic spices. Another one that's nice to add is coriander. If you've got coriander seeds, that's great. But you know, again, like those are the basic ones. If you want to play around, you play around, because every different curry will have like all sorts of spices. Because you know, curry powder is not like the powder of the curry leaf, right? It's like a mixture, a combination of different spices, and depending on the household, depending on what you're making it with, depending on your mood or your whatever your needs, you may want to use different spices. Okay, so here's like cleaning, healthy, cleansing. It's spring. We just want to like, you know, chill out. I'm using these spices. All right. Okay. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tomatoes. So I don't know if you were here earlier this week. I went tomato crazy at the market. So I've got a cup of these tomatoes that I normally roast, but here I just cut them, and yeah, there's like a good cup in there. So I'll add it over here. I'm gonna add some salt as well. So where's my favorite sea salt? There it is. So I put a teaspoon or a bit more. You just adjust as you go, you know. So there you go. We don't need the ghee anymore. So I can put that away. I can put that away. All right. Okay. So I toss this for a bit. And it looks so pretty. Like it looks just so pretty. Just already, like look at that. It's so nice. Okay. And it smells so good. And then quite early on, what I will do is I will add these lentils, okay? So I've soaked them for an hour, and after an hour, you see how they're getting a bit flaky and white? That's normal, and it's okay. So I'm gonna put them in there, okay? And I'm going to add a liter of water, okay? This is just normal filtered water. The heat is on medium-high, so I will let that reduce for like, you know, a while, like half an hour or so, maybe more. And They're usually cooked in like 20 minutes, these lentils, by the way. So this is what's so wonderful about these lentils is like, you can decide to soak or not soak, it's up to you. But the wonderful thing is that in 20 minutes flat, like, you know, you're done. Like your dinner is done in 30 minutes with this thing. Like I talk a lot, which is why this is taking me a long time to show you just the first steps. But they're important steps, right? So blend with something like this, your onion, your garlic, any little kind of leftover veg you've got in the fridge. You blend it really well. You put it in the ghee to fry up softly, you know, not too high, like medium high. And then you put all your spices so that all the fragrances come out. And it's the best way. That's how they do it. Like the Indian friends I have who like to cook and who've showed me, they always show me like the ghee, the onion, the garlic, and the spices, and they're mashed up with this little mortar thing. Now, if you don't have this and all you've got is powder, then use the powder, right? But that's really an important step. And then I think you should just pick the spices that you feel you need. So I should write this up for you, like have a little Ayurvedic guide of cinnamon is for this, and cumin is for this, and if you need this, you know, use that, or just go by smell. Like, what are you wanting? You know, is the coriander putting you off, or is the cumin you're not into it, or whatever. So that's a nice kind of intuitive, fun way to like test out different combinations. And if you're just in that, I have no time for this, Ariana, like just I just want to get it done, then take ready-made curry powder, put 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons, whatever you want. You could add chilies to this if you wanted to. I won't, but you totally could. And what else? And then you just let simmer. And let it simmer. And if you feel like, it's a bit too thick and I want it to be a bit different, or whatever you want, like it to be a bit creamier, you can just add coconut milk to it to give it that nice flavor, or not, you don't have to. The other thing you can add to this are vegetables like, you know, if you've got like, you know, spinach, that could be a nice one to add, just wilted spinach at the end, that could be nice. And you're gonna see, this is gonna give a nice red, orangey kind of curry. And you serve it on rice. I always serve it on my favorite basmati rice. And then, because basmati rice, and I use the white one and the brown one, but the white one actually goes down easier, even though it's not as high in fiber. It does have a higher glycemic index, but for some reason it goes like it's like really easy to digest for me. But maybe it's because I come of Iranian heritage, Persian heritage, where we, you know, probably have been eating rice for generations and generations. So I don't know. Maybe not. But I like to use the white basmati rice for this. And then if you don't use coconut milk, at the end, you can just put a dollop of yogurt. You can sprinkle with some coriander or like cilantro leaves that are chopped up. You can sprinkle some coconut shavings. I mean, whatever you do what you want with it, test, try, but I really wanted to show you the basics of it. And get a package of these and keep them in your pantry, and get a pantry of like spices, because those two together, you can make dinner in a half an hour. That's usually pretty good, pretty healthy, and like everybody likes, right? So that's that for the curry. Now I wanted to show you something else, just really, really quick. I'm not even going to cook it in front of you. But for those of you who don't know me, you might not know that I'm a huge fan of having fruits in the morning, and I also am a huge fan of, like, fruits to me is the thing you eat first thing in the morning when they're fresh, and then sometimes I'll have them cooked, and sometimes I'll have them fresh. But one thing I do like to do is to mix them with overnight oats, because I feel like that's something that gets me through the morning and you know, until lunchtime, and I'm good. And you can put like almond butter or nut butters to make it a bit, you know, like heavier, I guess, if you tend to get hungry maybe a bit earlier. And one of the things I like to do when I'm not using fresh fruit is to use berries in a compote. Okay, so what I mean by them, what I aim to say is, if you don't want to use fresh fruit, you can use cooked fruit. And I often, and cooked fruit in French, you would call that a compote. And it's not a puree, but it's not a jam. It's just stewed fruit. And I often use stewed berries because I always have too many fresh berries, and when they start getting kind of like a bit too mushy, I'll clean them and then I stick them in a pot, which is what I did here. And stick them in a pot with a bit of water, some vanilla, some cinnamon, and a little bit of maple syrup. And I've got this wonderful, wonderful compote. And honestly, guys, this is definitely something you should do. You know, when it's when it's going to start becoming blueberry season. Now we're already seeing the strawberries. When it starts getting to that season when you have too much of it and you don't know what to do and you can only make so many crumbles and pies and whatever, do one of these compotes. They're so good, and it feels like sweet, but it's not overly sweet. It's just really cooked fruit, and I just put very little maple syrup or coconut sugar to sweeten it a little bit. And I'll use it on yogurt, I'll use it on my oats, I'll use it as if you're having people over and you want to do dessert but you don't want something too heavy duty. You can just, serve it on a thick yogurt or something like that. The Swedish even do blueberry soup. So anyways, there's loads of things you can do. Actually, if you puree half of this, and then mix the pureed part with the non-pureed part, and chill it, it makes for a nice soup, for a dessert soup. And you can do that with blueberries, strawberries, whatever, and it's a chilled fruity soup. So that's also nice. So it's so versatile, so easy to make, and really healthy and delicious. So I wanted to tell you about that. The other thing is, now that winter is ending, there are, it is ending, but there's still some vegetables that are hanging around from winter over here, and endives is one of those vegetables. So endives is something my husband doesn't like, my kids don't like it, but I really like it, and I like to have it in salads. So usually I cut it up in salad. It's so easy because it's so easy to, you don't need a salad spinner. You just wash it quickly, chop, 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 and then I put it with walnuts and a vinaigrette or whatever. So that's one way to make them. But I wanted to tell you that you can also braise them, and it's so simple, okay? What I did here is I braised them, okay? And often endives are in the north of France or in Belgium, they make them. And one of the easiest way to make endives is to just put them in a baking dish. Make sure to find the whitest possible endives, not the ones that have too much green on them, because they're going to be more bitter. And then make sure all the leaves are nice and it's as white as possible. The reason they're white, by the way, is because they are grown underground in these caves, apparently. Anyway, and then you just put a sprinkle of sea salt, a bit of muscovado sugar, or a bit of brown sugar, but just a tablespoon, or you could put coconut sugar, the juice of an orange, a quarter cup of water, and you stick it in the oven. You can also put orange zest, stick it in the oven and leave it for an hour and a half, go work out, go do some work, I don't know, do whatever for an hour and a half at 150 Celsius, and you get these wonderful braised endives. And these, I'll just cut one up so you see what they look like inside. They're tender, and they're really tender. They're not they're not very bitter, because that's why a lot of people don't like endives. It has a bad rep here in France. It has a bad rep because any person my age will tell you oh, when I was a kid at the cafeteria, we used to have endives. It was the Brussels sprouts, the brown Brussels sprouts, and the endives, that nobody liked because they were overcooked and or boiled and all this stuff. And they shouldn't be boiled or anything like that. Ideally, they should just be braised in the oven or served raw, or you can do it in a gratin with like a bechamel sauce and like some cheese on top. You can do that too. But yeah, so I think it's one of those vegetables like Brussels sprouts that have a bad reputation, but because they weren't treated well when they were being cooked in cafeterias of schools and stuff like that. So know that if you've ever got endives and you don't know what to do with them, it's like I had a bunch in the fridge and I'm like, oh no, I forgot about them. And so I just braised them and they're gonna be amazing. And they're really good to serve alongside meat or whatever, like any kind of chicken or fish or whatever you have, but I just like eating them alone. So I'm gonna just take these. I might have a drizzle of olive oil on top, and I'll just eat them like that, like lukewarm, and they're delicious. You can maybe sprinkle some walnuts on top or whatever, but they're good. Okay, so this is starting to come together. Let me just show you what it's looking now. It needs to still reduce. You're gonna see. But it smells wonderful. Now you see it still needs to reduce. It's still a bit watery. But the good thing with this is that you can cook it for as long as you want. You can cook it for an hour and a half, or you can do it much less time, right? It's really up to you. And it's absolutely delicious. So I'm gonna let this reduce for a bit longer, and then I will take a picture and post it on Instagram, okay? And this is going to be, like, I'll write this up properly in a more organized fashion and put it in the ebook, and I'll let you know when that goes live. In fact, if you want to know when it's coming out, it's going to come out in the next kind of month or so. And yeah, if you want to know, keep updated, just subscribe to my newsletter. If you go on wellmama.com, WELLMA.com, click subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll announce it to anybody who's subscribed. And yeah, so if you've got any questions, please do reach out, either on Instagram or on my website or on YouTube. If you like this video, please share it. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I gotta say for today. Now I've got a lot of other things to do. I'm gonna let this cook. I'm having these for lunch. And first I will clean this mess up. All right, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend.